So the first take that I have for Celtics Heat is that Brad Stevens is not Mike Budenholzer. So, for example, he will play his guys 40-plus minutes. He's got no problem doing that. He proved that in the Raptors series. He also will be a lot more content with just switching a lot of the stuff that Miami did against the Bucks. So, for example, all the off-ball stuff that they ran, whether it's just, getting Duncan Robinson moving off the ball, Hero, Dragic, Jimmy, all those guys, the Celtics will just simply switch that. Now, that does not mean Miami can't still have success with doing those things. It's just, I don't think it's going to be as simple as it was against Milwaukee, a team that was so much about protecting the rim and not switching everything. They switched sometimes, but they were just so embedded in Budenholzer's philosophies when it comes to defense to the point where it's like, oh, Miami's got another open shooter, and oh, this guy's got another lane to the basket, because whether it's like Dante DiVincenzo and Chris Middleton or something, one of them thought they were switching, the other one thought it was a drop coverage, and it's like, if everybody's just on the same page that, yeah, just switch those type of things, then the Celtics should be doing better there. In terms of Miami having like Olynyk set screens or act like he's going to set a screen and then run out to the top of the key, which worked against Brook Lopez. Daniel Tice is more athletic. Robert Williams is more athletic. If they go with a small ball center, that guy's more athletic than Brook Lopez. So I feel like they can withstand that sort of thing. If the Heat try to do those fake screen things where like they have the guy come up and act like he's going to set a screen, but then the ball handler just goes the other way real quick once he sees that the Bucks, and previously it was the Bucks, now it'll be like Daniel Tice and whoever, Kemba, Tatum, Jalen, Smart, take your pick. They would just go the other way and they'd have a lane to the basket. I think with the Celtics, they will either know that that's coming, because obviously Brad has seen it if I've seen it, but also I think part of the reason why the Bucks got caught in those sort of things is because, again, their guys are so disciplined towards the drop coverage, even if their drop coverage was done better than most teams, to where they would just get into that position, and then it's like, oh, wait, the guy went the other way. What do we do now? And I also think the Celtics just have the size to do a lot of this. I mean, between Tatum, Jalen, and Marcus Smart, those are three guys who could match up on Jimmy, Dragic. I mean, two of them have a big size advantage on Dragic. They can match up with Hero and all those guys. Now, Gordon Hayward is, I guess, going to come back at a certain point this series, and that's another guy who can do that stuff on defense. But I'm mainly talking about how the Celtics will defend Miami here. So, basically, I just don't think the Celtics are going to get beat on a lot of the easy things that Miami got off of the Bucks, I also think at times we could see Tatum or Jalen switch on to Jimmy. I don't know if it's going to happen all the time. That is kind of interesting. I don't totally know who's going to defend Jimmy like that. I mean, I also think there's just going to be so much off-ball motion and switching and stuff in this series that I don't know if it's really necessary to talk about the matchups like that outside of, I guess, the center position. Because you could convince me of anything. You could convince me Kemba will defend Dragic. You could convince me that he'll be on Crowder, because Crowder's not going to beat you for putting a smaller guy on him. Do you stick Jalen on Duncan Robinson and just be like, stay glued to that guy on all times? Do you have Marcus defend one of the shooters? I don't know what the right answer there is, other than it probably makes sense to have Marcus Smart on Jimmy Butler sometimes. So I'm going to find that one out and we'll just see. I wouldn't be shocked if that sort of thing changes throughout the series. But now it's time to talk about Bam. So, to me, when Bam is getting into the stuff that he really wants to get into, which is the handoff plays up top to shooters, and then if you chase the shooter too much, Bam can go off the dribble and take it himself, or if you're giving him space for a jumper, because he has been pretty good at those, not really from three, but he's been making his mid-rangers against the Bucks. That's when I think Miami is very, very tough to stop. How do you defend Bam? For one, I think Daniel Tice just has to defend him well. I know that sounds pretty basic, but I think that's just kind of step one. I mean, can Tice kind of, resist the ball handler a little bit, but then get back to Bam so it's not alley-oops and that sort of thing. We saw Brook Lopez matched up on Bam for chunks of the previous series, and you could argue Brook Lopez not exactly fast enough or whatever to deal with Bam, whereas I think Tice probably isn't strong enough, but he could probably just stay with Bam like that. Robert Williams can definitely stay with him as well. Whether Robert Williams has the fundamentals for it is a different question. I don't think Cantor is an option for obvious reasons against Miami. One thing I guess you could try is to attempt to bring as little help on Bam as possible, which just dares him to be a scorer, at least when he's in the post or if he's got the ball on a face-up or whatever. The other thing, though, is, again, when they run those handoff plays and Miami forces you to defend with two guys and maybe bring a help defender over, then I think it's got to be a matter of, let's say it's Dragic and Bam on a handoff play up top. And let's say Dragic is being defended by, we'll just say Marcus Smart, and then it's Tice. Maybe Marcus Smart gets beat on the Bam screen, which, to be fair, it's tough to have Marcus Smart fall out of a pick and roll or handoff possession, but whatever it may be, right? You might just have to have some guy in the corner or on the elbow jet down into the paint, and then you're going to have Marcus run over to the guy who has now been left open. And that takes a lot of communication and a lot of smart defenders, but I think the Celtics can do it. I mean, they were, fourth in defense this year? I guess another way to get real wild would be if you actually didn't put a center on Bam and you went with, Jalen on him or something. I mean, they did go with Jalen on Siakam, and that was pretty successful. Bam is bigger than Siakam, so maybe it wouldn't work, but I don't know. Again, you could convince me of a lot of things with this series. Now, the other question then becomes, who does the center defend? And maybe the Celtics aren't even rolling with a center for this scenario to work, but I don't know. Do you think Tice on Crowder is that crazy? I don't really think so. But we'll have to see. I think it'll start out pretty conventional, and then I think eventually it could get pretty weird with who's defending who and all that in this series. I guess another thing to think about, and this is a pretty simple one, but can the Celtics just simply stay in front of Miami's guys? I mean, can Jimmy beat whoever's going to be defending him in big situations? Tatum, Jalen, Marcus Smart. My answer would be, I think the Celtics have got a shot to stay in front of guys. Even the Celtics dudes off the bench who are not always the best on offense, Semi Ojeleye, Grant Williams, they're at least good defensive players. I think we could also see times where the Celtics just dare Jimmy to take jump shots. I mean, you can't really sag off of him because then it just gets him a runway, but there's a window in which you can kind of leave a guy open a little bit off the ball and still get a closeout on him. So we could see something like that. The idea for that would be if it's a Dragic Bam pick and roll and you got to pick somebody to kind of leave open, but even then Jimmy's probably going to cut off of that, So we'll have to see. I mean, this is going to be very similar to the Raptors series where it's two teams, two good coaches, and just adjustment after adjustment after adjustment, and eventually somebody wins the series, of course. But yeah, to get back to the whole Jimmy being defended one-on-one sometimes, I mean, look, Jalen, Tatum, and Smart match up with him physically. So, yeah, I think they've got a chance. I think they can at least slow him down enough and not foul him all the time, and then that opens up the potential for the extra help defender. And again, Miami's got a lot of shooters, and Jay Crowder just can't miss from three right now, but I think the Celtics, I think they're equipped to defend a ball handler and then get out to shooters. But even then, as I say that, the thing that dictated the Raptors series was just whether threes were going in or not, and the Raptors definitely got their fair share of threes, although even then, some of their threes were just simply step-ups on the pick and roll. So to think about that for Miami, it's is Dragic going to get some easy ones? Not easy, but more so not difficult enough. Van Fleet and Lowry hit their fair share of threes just because the big dropped a little bit. Not as bad as other teams have been dropping in the playoffs, but like Robert Williams or Daniel Tice, they wouldn't just step up all the way on Van Fleet or whoever. So maybe Dragic could get something like that. The fear is, of course, if you step up too hard and then you're giving up a layup. But, that's the NBA for you. Have I talked about Kemba at all? I feel like I did. We'll have to see if Miami can get him switched on to Jimmy. There's one other thing that I forgot about how the Celtics could defend Miami, which is they're going to leave Iguodala and Derek Jones open. Although there is a chance Derek Jones Jr. does not play. He only played in 3 games against the Bucks. Really, he only played in 2, and he played like 7 minutes each time. But Iguodala will definitely play, and they're not going to guard him. So we're going to have to see. I mean, Miami, if he's left wide open, Miami will get him involved. They will have him involved in whether it's like Bam handoff plays or just something to get him moving to where the Celtics now have to defend him. So it's not like Spoelstra's system is going to get broken because one guy's being left open, but you know, it's something to pay attention to nonetheless. I guess one other thing to think about is, will the Celtics just double team or trap some of Miami's guys? I mean, sometimes when you get weird, teams freak out a little bit. I mean, maybe that's how you slow down Bam. You just bring a double on him and you just like use the length of the Celtics to not make anything easy for him. But again, you're definitely rolling the dice with that one. Could we perhaps see a zone from the Celtics against Miami? Again, I wouldn't rule it out. Anyway, how are the Heat going to defend the Celtics? Well, if Gordon Hayward's back, that'll make it tougher. Just another guy to drive and kick and do all that stuff, and also help out on defense, if I didn't mention that one already. Apparently Hayward will be back in this series, so that's good. Whether he can just step right in and be 17 to 20 point Gordon Hayward, I don't know. But that'll certainly make it a little easier for the Celtics. I think the Celtics are going to go at Dragic and Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero and Kendrick Nunn if he plays and Kelly Olynyk, and just see if these guys can defend like that. Miami's a very good team defense, and Bam is the guy who cleans up a lot of the messes. But if you can find ways to just put those dudes on an island, you know, the Tyler Hero defending Tatum or defending Jalen or Hayward if he's back, that sort of thing, then I think you can have a decent amount of success. Not saying that those guys are bad defensive players. I mean, I don't think it's possible to have a number of below average defensive players and do what the Heat did to the Bucks. But still, I think it's possible to get some points if you just find ways to really, really attack like Dragic over and over again. And I don't know who's going to be on Kemba. Again, there's probably going to be a lot of switching, so it might not matter, but the Celtics, I'm sure, can find ways to have Dragic or one of these guys on Kemba, and it's like, can they guard him? Now, is it possible Miami busts out a zone? I mean, Toronto had success with that against the Celtics, especially against Kemba. Because we all know what Kemba wants to do. He wants to run pick and roll. He wants to run ISO. He wants to take pull-up threes. He wants to do that step-back elbow jumper, which seems to go in every time. Or he wants to get fouled at the rim. And a zone combined with big defenders, which Miami has. I mean, Duncan Robinson might not be like the best defender in the world, but he is tall. Crowder's good. Jimmy's good. Bam's good. Iguodala's good. Olynyk is a solid team defender, I feel like. I mean, even Tyler Hero. Like, Tyler Hero's 6'5", you know? So, Kemba's in for it again. The Celtics, look, they gave a bunch of money to a 5'11" point guard. You're going to have to deal with it. So, he's just going to have to deal with arms reaching in on him, and the only guy who's of similar size to him is pretty much Dragic, and I don't even know if Dragic is going to be on him that much, so I think getting Kemba some off-ball stuff could be the way to do this. There was that report in Game 7 where it seemed like Brad wanted to do that, and he asked Kemba about it, and then Kemba was like, nah, man, we got this. Maybe for the series, you just do it anyway. You know, just a little bit of handoff action for Kemba, or just the classic Brad Stevens, get Isaiah Thomas moving off the ball, and just do it for Kemba now, you know? But I do want to mention Bam, because I think there's a chance that Bam could switch onto Kemba. I mean, Bam can switch on to anybody. I guess this could be my official Bam on defense spiel about 15 minutes into the video, finally. You know, if they run a pick and roll and Bam is the guy, I imagine they don't want to switch it all the time. But if they do, I don't think Tice or Robert Williams is really going to make Miami pay for doing that, especially if they don't start with Dragic on the initial ball handler. Like, let's say it's not even Kemba. Let's say it's Tatum and Tice, and the initial defender was Jimmy. Well, now it's Jimmy Butler on Tice. Tice can't do anything about that, and now it's Bam on Tatum. Can Tatum beat Bam in that situation, or do you then go to somebody else because now Bam is stuck on Tatum? I don't know. But again, I don't even know if Miami's going to switch that. They may ask Bam to play a little more conventional defense, and I think Bam and Miami as a team are good enough to where he can step up on the screen or hedge or whatever the term you want to use is, and then Tatum's initial defender can get back to him, and I think Miami will trust that the Celtics' big guys are not good enough to make them pay for that 1 second of shuffling around to get back to Tatum. Or Jalen or Kemba or whoever you will. Or Gordon Hayward if he's back in this series. But that being said, similar to Spoelstra, Stevens, he's going to find ways to go at that. Do I know what those things are? Not totally. I mean, we're talking about people who are much smarter than I am at basketball, so they'll see stuff that I don't see. But I did mention Tatum there, and Tatum's going to have to be that guy. So I think in big situations, fourth quarters, whatever, we could see Jimmy on Tatum. But even throughout the game, I think you could see Crowder on Tatum, Iguodala on Tatum. Good defensive players, right? And the Celtics can do whatever they can try to get worse defenders switched onto them, and they'll probably have some success with it. Miami will probably do an okay job other times of whether it's simply fighting over a screen or whatever it will. There's ways to not just get your worst guy switched onto the best guy time and time again. And then I think it just becomes a matter of, is Tatum good enough? I mean, his playmaking definitely stepped up against the Raptors. I think Miami is not going to defend Daniel Tice that much. The Marcus Smart thing continues to be wild. I mean, what was he in Game 7 against the Raptors? I think he was 2 for 10 from outside, but the game before he was 6 for 11 from outside. Like, I don't know, man. The Marcus Smart experience it's really something else. And, of course, the way this relates back to Tatum is if Miami has guys they have to respect, it's going to make Tatum's job easier to go off the dribble and all that. We did see against Toronto that Anunoby had some success on Tatum. I do think some of Tatum's missed shots were because of him getting the ball kind of late in the shot clock and he didn't have a lot of time to do stuff, for whatever that's worth. But even so, there were definitely some times where when the Celtics were not able to get Van Fleet switched onto Tatum and he had to create against a bigger defender, he had some trouble, as you would expect. And the obvious guy for that is Jimmy. Is it possible that Miami could double-team Tatum and really force him to be a playmaker? I think it's possible. I mean, I think Tatum's handle is still not as good as it can be. It's certainly better than the average 6'8" guy or however tall Tatum is, but it can be a little loose at times. I think that's fair to point out, and that's a potential thing that Miami can go at where they just crowd the hell out of Tatum, and maybe they get a little bit of luck from Marcus Smart not killing him that game, and again, I don't think they're going to guard Daniel Tice much, so I think they've got some chances to slow him down. I mentioned the zone earlier with Kemba. I guess everything I said about Tatum can kind of be applied to Jalen as well. Jalen is not the passer that Tatum is. And again, Gordon Hayward is a very important piece of all this. So, yeah. Who am I taking to win this thing? I think I'm going to go with the Celtics, because I think the Celtics have enough size and athleticism and all that good stuff to where they can dare Crowder and Robinson and Hero and Nunn and Iguodala and all these guys to go off the dribble a little bit more. Kind of similar to what we've seen with the Lakers and the Rockets. And I just don't think those guys are built enough for that. Now, even as I say that, there is still Hero, Kendrick, Nunn, and Iguodala. And all three of those guys have got some juice off the dribble, but it's like, are Nunn and Hero really ready to be playmakers like that? I don't know. I know Hero had some assists against the Bucks, but we're going to have to see him do it again for me. And in the case of Iguodala, I just don't know if he's still got it. And on the other side with the Celtics, I just feel like they have enough creation skills between Tatum, Jalen, Kemba, I keep saying their names over and over again, and potentially Hayward as well, to where the Celtics can just kind of keep the drive and kick game going until they get the open looks. Now, even as I'm saying this, I'm kind of doubting myself about it. But I think that's just how it's going to be when you've got two really good teams and two really good coaches. I mean, the case for Miami over the Celtics is the Celtics can't figure out Bam, and Miami can defend like Tatum really well with Jimmy, and Miami's got so much shooting that even the Celtics can't keep up with their guys. Like it's just tough. I mean, I got to pick somebody, and I'm taking the Celtics.